we have the main review of the week, which of course has been heavily anticipated. It did get pushed back. What was the original release? It was last year.
Yeah, it was last
Probably
year.
almost a year ago. I feel like it was like last summer.
maybe.
November?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tyler,
Tyler, you're on mute.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
it was sometime last year.
Sometime last year, yeah, whatever. It did get pushed back. And that is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, obviously the direct sequel to Into the Spider-Verse. I'll read the synopsis and then we'll kind of go through people. I'm thinking about going from people who liked it least to most and then switching through. They can go over some spoilers, all that good stuff as well. So, after reuniting with Gwen Stacy, Miles Morales, Brooklyn's full-time friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, is catapulted across the multiverse where he encounters a team of spider people charged with protecting its very existence. But when the heroes clash on how to handle the new threat, Miles finds himself pitted against the other spiders and must redefine what it means to be a hero so he can save the people he loves most. What I'm going to do with this, obviously, we'll go into, as we usually do, just thoughts, a few minutes of your thoughts, like what you thought about the film, negatives, positives, and then after that, we can go into kind of the spoilers and obviously some spoiler warning when we go into that as well. But Tyler, I'm going to start with you. We all liked it a lot, to get out of the way. But Tyler, you obviously liked it least. Then I'll probably go to me and then maybe George or Cam because they were at the higher end. But Tyler, if you want to give your kind of quick overview on the film.
Yeah, it's obviously one of those movies that, like, if you rate anything other than a 5-star, you're going to get people, like, crying in your comments. So I gave it an 8.4, which means it's, like, a feather away from being a 4.5. So it's, like, right on that border. I'm not here to rain on anyone's parade. Like, I'm so happy everyone's loving this movie. I love all the reactions. People say it's the best Spider-Man movie, best comic book movie. I'm over the moon and happy that people are loving it that much. For me, I don't know. I think it's like, so I have my expectations obviously astronomically high, and I saw it a day later, which me seeing it on Friday felt like I saw it 3 months late because like everyone and their mother had already seen it and posted reviews, and everyone was saying like I had crazy high expectations. But they were even surpassed. So then me going into it, I was like, okay, now my expectations are even higher than they were before. And for me, like the first like hour or so, I just really struggled to get into. Like around the halfway point, I was looking at my watch a bunch. I was like, for me, it just wasn't moving very well for me. Like I thought there was some pacing issues. For me personally, I thought the final 45 minutes was like incredible, peak. Nothing could be improved. I'd have no notes. Like I thought it was absolutely incredible. I love the ending. I have zero issues with that cliffhanger ending. Like that seems like a lot of people are having. But yeah, I don't know. I just didn't love the first like hour of it. And, but I mean, yeah, it's the greatest like animation I've ever seen in my life. So like animation absolutely lived up to the hype, beyond the hype. All the voice acting was cool. The characters were cool. Like Spot was an awesome, interesting villain. Miguel O'Hara is just epic. All the spider people, epic. But yeah, I don't know. Just didn't fall in love with it immediately. Like I definitely into the Spider-Verse for me. I connected a lot more with the story. Yeah, still really loved it. 9.3.
Okay, so just off a 5 kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying. I think this is a film where even if you give it a 4.5, people will get annoyed at you, which is kind of crazy. So I obviously Tyler gives it a 8.4 out of 10, so nearly a 4.5. I give this 4.5. I said in my review that I think this does live up and meet the levels of its monumental predecessors, obviously Into the Spider-Verse. I did do my Spider-Man ranking yesterday, and I think I would have it slightly lower. And when I say slightly, I think it's very slight in terms of a margin of quality. I think the artistic design of this one was just incredible and second to none. It was beaming with inspiring visuals, heart, genuinely funny, which I found from the first film as well, and doesn't pull any punches, which I said in my review when it comes to just giving some jaw-dropping moments, such as the leap of faith scene in the first one. I think this one has many, maybe not akin directly to that in terms of its quality and how iconic it is, but stuff that really kind of I lost myself in the most positive light. Interestingly enough, Tyler, I actually maybe preferred the first hour.
That's a lot of people have been saying in my comments, but I don't know. For me, I just like kept checking my watch for some reason. I don't know.
Interesting, so for me, the only negative I really have, and there isn't much for me with this film, because as I said at the end of my review, this is probably Marvel's second now best project to date for me, anyway. And I think that at times it manages to lose its direction in between the way it wants to go, but then I do think it quickly pulls itself back in and regains focus. But I would say throughout the middle section, there is points where it loses direction of what it wants to take, and it kind of comes a little bit bloated. But again, I don't think that's necessarily a crazy negative because I think everything else worked. I loved the characters in this. I adored them. Miguel was amazing. I loved Daniel Kaluuya in this. I thought it was fantastic. I think it was great. I loved I can't remember his name. Forgive me, the Indian Spider-Man. He was so funny. I had a really, really good time with him. And I just think the 6 different artistic styles just worked so well. And I think that multiverse storytelling is very much a thing now that a lot of films try to accomplish. And in my opinion, a lot of films don't do it very well. And I think this does multiverse storytelling in kind of the finest way possible, regardless of its few flaws here and there. But yeah, obviously we'll go into spoilers in a second, but 4.5 from me. I really, really enjoyed it. It's the second best Spider-Man movie, the second best Marvel movie for me anyway. And I'm really excited for the second. And I think just to go on what you said, Tyler, about people, about the cliffhanger, I think a lot of people didn't expect it to be a part 1. I think it's most people's concern. They didn't expect it to be a direct setup, which it is. To be fair, they didn't market it like that at times, I would say, but I also didn't have an issue with the
the original title of the movie was Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. It's the same thing. Yeah. Like Infinity War and Endgame were originally Infinity War Part 1 and Infinity War Part 2.
I don't think casual viewers know that though, just because like I have friends who like love Marvel, but I don't think they get like in the details. They just a Marvel movie comes out, they watch it, and I don't think any of them knew it was. Like,
I think it depends on how into the
Spider-Verse.
The world you are. Yeah, Spider-Verse. Yeah, that was cool. How into the kind of the world you are, whether you know that or not. Do you know what I mean? Because we would know that because we spend all our days speaking about it. But I think my friends who like the film probably wouldn't know that unless it said part 1 on the actual title, if that makes sense. But yeah, George, if you want to give your thoughts, I know obviously you're very, very high on this.
Yeah, I mean, you guys basically said my thoughts, even though I went with a 5 out of 5 as opposed to a 4.5 or a 4 out of 5. I really fucking love this thing. It took everything that I adore about Into the Spider-Verse and it just kind of amplifies it. And it's odd saying that because typically I like the more condensed, small scale story, like Glass Onion.
We've said this.
We've said this, but like walking out of Spider-Verse, I was like, this movie amplifies everything of the first movie and it just does it so well. It is overwhelming with just the amount of information you're being thrown. You have to be on your feet because the jokes are kind of like very like subtle. But no, I fucking loved this thing. It so quickly rose my ranks of best movie of the year, one of the best animated movies ever, comic book movies, Spider-Man movies. Like this is sitting top 2 on a lot of lists right now. So much heart, so many amazing character moments. I'm so happy that we got more of Miles's mom, Rio, because they just had so many touching moments that I fucking adored. And mother-son moments just always hit different for me. I just adore them. I love that we got more Gwen Stacy. I love that the movie opens and you basically are like, oh, this is a Gwen Stacy movie, which I adore because I think she was the second best character of Into the Spider-Verse, and I'm happy that we now see a little bit of her backstory and kind of how she became Spider-Girl. The animation, it's one of those things I don't even need to say. Everyone and their mother has said it. It's fucking gorgeous.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you guys like watch Spider-Man content, but like seeing the animation from the old TV show come back, seeing like the Lego animation, and I've heard a lot of people say this as well. It literally just made me feel like a kid again. And I said in my TikTok review, I wish 14-year-old George could have seen this movie because he would have fucking lost it. 26-year-old George lost it as well. But I fucking love this movie. I think the Spot was the perfect villain for Across the Spider-Verse because it was also his origin story. It's not like he was like his world ending plan wasn't coming to fruition in this movie. So it allowed for a lot more time to be paid attention on Miles and Gwen and Peter B. Parker. And then our whole cast of new characters, Miguel O'Hara, who I just thought was fucking menacing, incredible. Like it was just like, it was such a calm menace. You know what I mean? Like, it was like his demeanor was just so like
demanding and stuff.
It was like, you know what? I'll reference a movie he was in. He felt like the Baron in Dune. Like the Baron doesn't have any scenes where he's like screaming or shouting or like really imposing his physical and like strong presence. And I feel like Miguel O'Hara is kind of on those same lines. Like, he's just a very calm dude who's just going to do whatever the fuck he wants. And I love that about his character. And then Daniel Kaluuya as Cyberpunk, I actually didn't even know it was Daniel Kaluuya until after the movie. Until I checked
Really? I thought it was like really like obvious.
I don't know if that's honestly what I was thinking. Because like now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, yeah, like I know Daniel Kaluuya, like I know his voice, blah, blah, blah. But like during the movie, I don't know. I couldn't piece together who the fuck was voicing this character. But no, I thought he was hilarious. He dropped some hysterical one-liners that we can like maybe mention in spoilers. But yeah, overall, I'll end my rant there. I really fucking like this. I already got my tickets to see it again tomorrow night, and I'm really excited.
Already?
It's weird saying this, considering that there's a Nolan movie, a Scorsese movie, a Denis movie, a Fincher movie coming out this year, but I don't see a movie beating Across the Spider-Verse for me this year.
Well, I think especially when you have this undying connection to the universe now because of the first one as well.
Yeah.
But then again, you also have that for
Dune
as
too.
Well,
yeah.
So who knows? Yeah. One question I would ask you guys before I go on to Cam, is Cam here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm here.
One question I wanted to ask you guys before I was to go into Cam's thoughts as well. I saw a few like mainly Americans saying this on Twitter. Did you understand Daniel Kaluuya?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I definitely didn't get all his lines.
Really?
But that wasn't just a Daniel Kaluuya thing. That was a pretty widespread thing that like a lot of audio issues in theaters for Spider-Verse.
I don't know if that was an audio thing either, because I think it was just like he was dropping so many one-liners just like under his breath, like randomly. And it's like you're not ready for them. So you don't know what to pay attention to.
I guess so. But
that makes sense.
I did notice in the first like half an hour there was a point where Gwen was speaking when they were having when Vulture was in, when there was a problem with the audio when it was significantly lower than the rest of the sound piece. And I think
that's what I was gonna say. Is like I didn't understand some of Spider-Punk's lines, but it wasn't like because of the accent. It was like it wasn't just him. There was other people who's like there was some background visual sound effects and music throughout the movie where I was like, I don't know, I'm not really picking up a lot of this dialogue because the background music's so like loud in this. So yeah, but that's like a common thing. So if you listen to this and you're like, oh, I didn't pick up some stuff, that's like all over Twitter and social media. People are like, my Spider-Verse screening, I couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, Cam, if you want to give your spoiler-free thoughts, my friend.
Yeah, I'm not. It's a no camera kind of day. Sorry, but I fucking love this thing, man. I gave it a 98 out of 100. Obviously, I think it's the best movie of the year for sure. I could fully see it dropping down a little bit, but a lot of people asked maybe why it wasn't 100 out of 100, and I think for me that's just there was no leap of faith moment for me. Like there is a moment in this movie that's incredible, that's kind of like it. Or it's trying to recapture that magic, and that's kind of just the difference between like 100 out of 198. Like it's not anything crazy, but I would say there wasn't any like scene that I think I'm gonna rewatch 1.5 billion times, and most movies don't have that. But I think that's just a huge testament to Into the Spider-Verse. This movie looks beautiful. All the side characters were great. I don't really have anything to say that you guys didn't. Also Tyler, the first hour, like that was without a doubt my favorite part. So I was shocked to see that in your review. And I heard you say you were checking your watch, but I don't know. I just loved that it was like a Miles and Gwen story for 99% of this movie. And then they got into the multiverse of it, obviously, but it was so like heartfelt in the Miles and Gwen story. And I also I had a couple of comments on my TikTok of people like saying they hated the animation of Gwen's Earth, and I thought that was one of the most blasphemous takes I've ever heard. Yeah, that like that Earth.
It was like a painting,
the way exactly, and the way it animated behind them with the colors of their emotion and how they were feeling, and like it was that just had me over the top. I was loving it. So that's my spoiler-free thoughts.
I feel like we've got Cam on like his deathbed or something.
You do.
Cam needs an IV drip ASAP.
Yeah.
I also think it's
dehydrated.
I think it's crazy that people ask Cam like what holds it back from a 100 out of 100. Where if they know Cam at this point, like he has to watch a movie like 25 times before it can get that. Because Into the Spider-Verse just got it like last week. Like he doesn't just give those out unless like he is in love with that movie for like 5 years. So maybe it'll get there.
It'd be weird if you just gave 100 all the time, wouldn't it? It wouldn't mean anything to that point.
Right. Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, we'll move into kind of spoilers. It depends where you guys kind of want to start with. Is there any particular guys you want to go into first? Any particular parts you want to go into first?
I want to touch on. I don't even know. I mean, yeah, I guess it'll dive into spoilers, but I want to say I'm with Cam on thinking like the first hour 15, 20, 30 of this movie is like the best part of this movie because
I said the same. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a video going around like last week or 2 weeks ago, a big creator whose name I won't mention, basically saying that Spider-Man Homecoming is the worst Spider-Man movie because Spider-Man doesn't go through like he doesn't struggle or anything. And I think that's just a very like brain dead take because the character of Spider-Man is never to like physically struggle with villains. It's how he handles like being Spider-Man. Like in this movie, Miles Morales is 15 years old. And I think this movie captures the fact that this is just a kid trying to balance social life, family life, with, love life, with the fact that he is the most powerful man in Brooklyn, in New York City, in the world. So I think this movie captures that really, really goddamn well. And that scene where he's late to his dad's, I guess, becoming captain party.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just kind of, and this is where the animation is just so good because you kind of like, this movie does a really good job at conveying emotion through animation. And the entire scene when his parents are yelling at him for being late, you could just tell he's like sitting there and he's like, I should tell them right now. But he knows that is the wrong decision to make. And I think this movie captures that aspect of Miles Morales / Spider-Man better than any other, Peter Parker Spider-Man that we've gotten in live action. Maybe not just as good, maybe slightly better than Spider-Man 2, in my opinion. I think that movie also does a very good job at kind of showing what being Spider-Man does to Peter Parker's life. But that's why this is like the first hour and a half was like some of my favorite parts of this movie because it is truly
most down to earth kind of thing.
It is so down to earth, and it is just truly showing us and I don't want to say like correct version of Spider-Man because obviously there's no proper way to create this character in animation or live action, but it just does such a good job at showing us that very important part of Miles Morales' life.
I would also say that comes down to like the animation style as well, because within the Spider-Verse films, the use of color and the animation, especially what Cam mentioned in Gwen Stacy's Earth, the kind of painted visual style and the use of color there, when she was speaking to Captain Stacy, obviously her dad, when she's going through the emotional piece with him about how she's kind of left because obviously he found out that she was Spider-Gwen, whatever it is. And I think that the use of color in that really, signifies the emotions you're seeing. And I think it's hard to sometimes create that in live action. It's also even harder to create that in animation sometimes, what we've seen in other films. I think the Spider-Verse films do that in such a way which I haven't really seen before. Tyler, do you want to go into kind of, obviously George spoke about it a little bit in terms of the first hour, in terms of why you kind of thought the second half was better or whatever?
I don't know. I think it's a pretty common take. I think from what I've seen is that the first hour is the best and what people like the most. Like I think most people align with you guys. I think for me, I don't know if it was the first hour because I really enjoyed once I got to Miles' story. For me, I just didn't connect with the whole Gwen story and like the whole first battle with Gwen, Miguel O'Hara, and the motorcycle lady versus basically the Vulture, right? Where they're going. Yeah, so
I'm gonna give you a hint here, Tyler. Sorry to cut you off, but if you can't remember a name, throw out Spider-Man or Spider-Woman because that was Spider-Woman.
Okay,
yeah,
smart.
Just gonna help you out there.
So yeah, Spider-Gwen, Spider-Man, and Spider-Woman going against the Vulture, like that whole probably the first 30 minutes because like all Gwen's story and then into that. for me, it just, I don't know, it just didn't like suck me in, I guess. So like I said, it's like an 8.4 out of 10. So I'm not like dogging it. I'm just saying like I don't think I connected to Gwen's story much. So since this was such a Gwen heavy movie, I think that might be why I didn't grasp onto it as much as some other people. But once it got into Miles' story, like all this stuff with Miles back in his Earth, his Brooklyn, with Visions Academy, with trying to figure out if he's going to, what he's doing for college with his family, his dad becoming captain, his mom and his relationship, her realizing he's starting to get into girls and all that, absolutely love. Because I love the more grounded Spider-Man. That's why like these multiverse stuff start to go a little off the rails. So like when I say like the final 45 minutes, I mean the whole like final battle with, and then the final reveal, which we'll talk about obviously in spoilers, like the whole final like 15 minutes especially, I thought were like incredible. But like the whole Spider Society middle chunk was really fun and cool, all the different animation styles. I definitely think like for me, some of them were like a little too fan servicey for my tastes. Like I was just like, okay, whatever, cool. Like you have like Garfield and Maguire and you have Gambino, and like I like when they went to Venom's universe. That was super fun. But I don't know, like I really, really enjoyed the movie. I didn't go away from it wanting to like rewatch it immediately. Like I don't even really have like an itch to rewatch it. But I think, like I said in my review, once Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out, I can easily see a world where like I come back and watch this and it like raises like a whole like 1 point to become like a 9.4 out of 10 or something once like the whole story's done, and I can probably appreciate the second one more. But again, I'm not here to rain on anyone's parade.
It definitely makes sense. I'm pretty sure Anna said the same as you, actually. I think I have seen some people say the same as you. I just think that most people preferred the first half, because myself, I actually really liked the first scene with Vulture. I thought Gwen's story was working really well. I actually just really, really enjoyed when it switches over to Miles and his, the introduction to, obviously, Spot. I thought that was great. I really, really enjoyed that bit. I think he's a fantastic villain. One thing I would say is, obviously, when you come, with these films, it is obviously direct and fan service, like you said, with a lot of these cameos. I've seen, in terms of the Donald Glover, Childish Gambino cameo, I've seen love, I've seen hate for this. Obviously, he comes in, he was Prowler in Homecoming.
Yeah, I mean,
See
he
that.
wasn't the Prowler, but yeah,
But
he was Aaron Davis,
whatever.
yeah.
Aaron Davis, yeah. And I've seen love for this, I've seen hate for this. I personally didn't really like it that he was in it, and I don't really know why. Did you guys like that or not?
I didn't I didn't freak out about it, especially since we're like we're three Tom Holland Spider-Man movies deep, and he makes like 5 minutes worth of screen time. And
he's not like a character. That
so there
like,
was no it was just like one of those cool Easter eggs, where it's like, oh, Childish Gambino, let's just toss him in this movie as Aaron Davis, and then they kind of reprise that role in Across the Spider-Verse. The one thing that stood out to me in that scene was just how seamlessly they meshed live action and animation.
A lot of films struggle with that.
Dude, that blew my fucking mind. I wasn't expecting that.
Especially in the is it the Venomverse?
Yeah.
That was really good. Obviously, Spot is going through because he finds out he can go to all the different multiverses, and he ends up in, obviously, he goes to the Lego universe or whatever. When we see J.K. Simmons again, because he's in all of them apparently.
He's in every single one.
He is.
J.K. Simmons is the one constant across this
in
across all universes.
Yeah. Where else does he go? So he goes
I
to
love that.
The Venom universe, the Lego one. Where else did he go in that scene?
He went to
like an old school one, like
Oh yeah, the old one. Yeah. I don't know the names for all of them. But I actually really liked that scene. I know what they do with that, and even me who hasn't seen, I've seen the first Venom film. I've never seen any of the Lego films or anything like that. I really, really enjoyed a little bit of fan service here and there, but I can definitely see why people don't like those sort of things. And I think, George, what you're saying is exactly right. Films struggle to mesh live action animation all the time. I see constant efforts with this where it really doesn't really, really go to plan anyway.
Yeah, and this was just so seamless. It's funny though, because like I thought that scene was like, it just looked so like natural. But the one scene, and I don't know if you guys feel the same, the one part of this movie where I was like, that like didn't look great, was when we had the close-up of Andrew Garfield. Like that's where it literally just felt like they just took a frame
They
took a frame from. Oh, I thought you meant like Andrew Garfield looked weird. I was like, they just took it out of Tazo.
No, he means how it showed.
Like, it looked like it wasn't supposed to be there, which obviously it wasn't. Like in the movie, like that is a like hologram or whatever they want to call it. But yeah, that part just it just stood out to me as like, and it's a cool moment. Like I enjoy that. obviously they gave us a little fan service stuff. You know, you're going across the Spider-Verse, you might as well just throw in a quick, you know, clip of Andrew, a quick clip of Toby. But that part, that like 8 seconds that it was on screen, I was like, the animation here is just, and it's not animation, it's just like the meshing of the two animations just didn't look all that entirely well.
I think the writing is just so crazy good for the whole, I was gonna say Across the Spider-Verse, but I guess like the whole Spider-Verse trilogy they're building, because like they basically built it so that like Miles Morales is the cause of every Spider-Man suffering, which is just like crazy, because Spider-Man's been a character for what, probably 70-ish years now. Yeah. And like just to be able to like thinking as a writer, like, okay, we've had so many iterations of Spider-Man, what's a story we can make to make them all sync up and join the Spider-Verse? It's like basically making Miles Morales an anomaly that's the reason every other Spider-Verse is going to get their Uncle Ben's killed, going to have all these villains to face. Like, it's just like Miles Morales as the anomaly is just like causing so much havoc across the entire multiverse of Spider-Man. I think that writing is just so creative and like such a smart way. Like Seth was saying, how like so many people are doing multiverse stuff nowadays, but that's just such a smart way to make the multiverse actually like a valid story, as opposed to just, hey, let's do a multiverse story because everyone's doing it and we can throw in a bunch of cameos and stuff. I think this is like probably the, yeah, I'd say this is the best. Even like I prefer Everything Everywhere All at Once to both these movies. In terms of multiverse handling, like I think Spider-Verse is the gold standard for it.
Yeah, I think it's up there. It's excuse me. While I was watching this movie, I knew that like the main focus was on, you know, Miles and the characters. It's a very character-driven Spider-Man story. So, you know, as the movie kind of progressed, you get bits and pieces of the Spot, and you kind of watch him like transform into this like truly like threatening thing. But the entire time I was watching, I was like, how are they, like, I didn't see Spot as like the problem. Does that make sense? Like, I didn't see him as being the only thing Miles has to deal with. So I also thought, yeah, like I'm completely on your side here, where it's like it's such a creative little addition to make it like, okay, the spider that bit Miles is just not from his universe, and that's causing this ripple effect across the multiverse. And that again goes right back to the character of Spider-Man. Just he's now got the weight of the multiverse on his shoulders, when at first he had the weight of Brooklyn on his shoulders.
And it's about like learning how to handle that. Like it's Spider-Man, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Like now he's got to learn how to like overcome this, and it's just that it was such a. I'm right there with you on this, Tyler. It's just such a simple little addition to, and it's not a little addition. It's the catalyst for Beyond the Spider-Verse, but it's such like a very unique and very refreshing like problem to throw on our main character. This movie could have ended, and they could have played Beyond the Spider-Verse right after, and I would have sat in the theater for another 3 hours.
Oh no!
Oh yeah, same. I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
Yeah, like I was honestly upset when the movie didn't just automatically run itself back after it ended.
I'm glad, like when you're doing a cliffhanger, they did it right in terms of the movie is supposed to come out in a year, less than a year technically, but I'd say like the gold standard for like a cliffhanger, give us the conclusion in a year. If it was like End of the Spider-Verse to this, where it's like cliffhanger, enjoy sitting for the next 6 years, then I think like I would agree with the criticism and be like, that's such a horseshit ending. We're going to have to wait 6 years until we see this. But it'll probably be within a year. I mean, I'm worried about that March release date. We'll see how that stands. But the Spot, like Jason Schwartzman as a Spot was.
Is that when it's meant to be out?
Yeah, Beyond the Spider is like March 2024.
Oh no, I don't think it's.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't think that's.
But I think they did a lot of it in parallel, so we'll see.
I don't
but
think that's happening at all.
But they haven't mentioned anything with like the
like
writers.
Right,
the writer's strike. They've never mentioned that delaying it, so I think it's all written. So I'm sure they did it in parallel. But Jason Schwartzman as a Spot was so good. And that's why I'm interested to see where the Spot goes in Beyond the Spider-Verse, because he was like the catalyst in this story in terms of getting the multiverse kind of re-kicked into gear, transporting all between different dimensions and kind of getting Miles back sucked into the story and connecting with Gwen and connecting with the Spider Society. So like, will the Spot be kind of just the across the Spider-Verse villain that's meant to kind of just kick back into the gear, the multiversal story? Or will, like, because we saw him in this movie, he was pretty incompetent. He's kind of still just discovering how to use his spots, his powers.
He's like adjusting to being a villain like Miles is.
Right. So, like, will he just be like the transitory villain in this one to kick off what Beyond the Spider-Verse will be? Or will he, like, master his powers? Like, Beyond the Spider-Verse, he's, like, knows how to use it perfectly, and he's like the big bad villain, and Spot is even more powerful than he was in this. But yeah, it was fun seeing not only Miles Morales continue to develop his powers, but we saw the Spot develop his powers as well, and I thought that was super cool and unique to get like a villain origin story as well.
I think at like the end there is kind of what they were going for, is like he's kind of figured out his powers because he gets to Miles Earth and he's all like, here's a bunch of spots. My spots are around, whatever he be doing with his spots. But Jason Schwartzman was such a standout in this movie for me. Him and Daniel Kaluuya, Spider-Punk, which I think most people agree with, that he's like the best Spider-Man that they introduce outside of obviously Miles and Gwen.
I probably have Miguel.
You think Miguel?
I don't Miguel.
Actually,
Yeah,
no, okay.
But I don't really count him, kind of, yeah.
I think Miguel was like, everyone knew he'd be great. Like, did anyone deny Oscar Isaac would be great? So I think I take that back. I think Daniel
Would it not be the
Kaluuya
same
was
with
just
Daniel
such a surprise, like for this kind of thing. I don't know. This was a different like thing than I'm used to with Daniel Kaluuya. I'm used to him being pretty calm and melancholy and just like, doing his thing. And I feel like he was fun and energetic in this, which was a little different. So I was a little surprised how much I enjoyed it.
I guess so. I also feel like he was also quite calm and just doing his thing in this one. Do you know what I mean? He's just there.
Well, yeah, I
he
guess
doesn't really get involved
calm.
too much. He just gives these little one-liners and stuff a lot of the time.
Yeah, his line when where were they? I think they were in the Indian universe.
The Indian universe.
And like the Spot was like consuming the buildings. And Daniel Kaluuya's character, Cyberpunk, goes, it's a metaphor for capitalism.
Yeah, that was fun.
My Peter lost it.
I think to what Cam's saying, though, is that Daniel Kaluuya wasn't really shown in the trailers, whereas Miguel O'Hara, we got minutes of him in the trailers. So I think that's why we all knew he was going to be epic, whereas Daniel Kaluuya was more of like a watching the movie surprise.
Well, I think with this as well, that all the like voice actors, I think they do such a phenomenal job at casting the voice actors, where I could name so many of them, being like they were amazing. You've got Jason... What's his name? Schwartzman?
Mr. Wes Anderson.
Schwartzman. Yeah. Who was amazing. You've got Daniel Kaluuya, who was amazing. You've got Oscar Isaac, who, of course, is amazing. I just think that so many of them stand out as they do a phenomenal job of casting these roles.
I really liked Issa Rae's Spider-Woman. She's kind of like the right-hand man to Oscar Isaac's.
The first pregnant superhero.
Yeah, and, people cool. Freaking out that she's pregnant, whatever. But I really liked her character. I think my standout character for this movie, like not standout in the sense that like I didn't think they'd be great, but my favorite character coming away from this was Gwen. I think Haley Steinfeld just did an incredible job as her. And then again, the animation on her Earth just like made me lose my mind because I loved it so much. But I also will say, I feel like in sequels, a lot of times they kind of try to like almost send their character back so that they can grow again. Cause like at the end of Into the Spider-Verse, he's became Spider-Man, right? So like, where do you go from there? And I enjoyed that in this movie. It's basically like, he's still confident on himself. He's still like, I'm Spider-Man. I'm, I can do this. I should be in this spider society. And basically it's just everyone else saying, you're not. Like in Miguel O'Hara's like, you're the only one that's not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be Spider-Man. This spider didn't come from your Earth. You got Peter Parker killed. And I think that's I think that's like a fun, way to do it, where he still has to like prove to everyone else now that he's Spider-Man, rather than like reverting himself back to where he's still not confident or something like that,
I think one of probably my favorite scene in the whole film is obviously when we find out that Miles, he's the original anomaly. Is that right? So he's the anomaly of the spiders, whatever. And he obviously finds out, we find out that Miguel tries to trap him because he shows that his dad is going to die. And that's, part of the plan, kind of like the butterfly effect. And he can't get in the way of that. Otherwise, obviously, things will happen. And I think that just the most impressive scene of this film is him trying to get away and all the different spider variations chasing him up the building. I think that was just incredible, the way that was set out. And I had such a barrel of laughs going through it and seeing all these different variants. And yes, we did see this in the trailer. We knew how many videos did you see about this? Is how many variants are going to be in Spider-Verse, whatever. I think that just worked in such a way. And that was probably my favorite scene. When he gets at the top Oscar Isaac kind of catches him. Miguel shouts at him, whatever. And I thought that was a really, really powerful moment of him getting away from kind of a moral dilemma, isn't it? And again, it comes back to what George was saying: Spider-Man learning how to be a hero is the moral dilemma of the universe, or saving his dad. I think is the primary thing there.
That entire sequence just had my jaw on the fucking floor. Because
that was my leap of faith. Not as obviously, like I said, not leap of faith, but you know.
I agree with Cam in I don't think this movie has a leap of faith scene. There's no doubt in my mind that Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to give us one of those, since that's going to be the trilogy conclusion. But no, that entire scene I think was so well crafted because it was such a fantastic balance of action, incredible animation, nostalgia bait, as well as like emotion. Like it started off as just an emotional scene. Miguel is telling Miles basically everything, and Miles is kind of carrying this weight while learning that Gwen and Peter B. Parker also knew about it. So it starts off as like this very emotional, like kind of heartbreaking scene from like the perspective of Miles Morales. And then it turns into just 10 minutes of nonstop chaos. Like that one scene warrants 10 rewatches just to catch every single Spider-Man that they had on screen. And then, once they were kind of done with the nostalgia bait and that kind of stuff, we get a really good scene with Peter B. Parker and Miles that I really fucking liked. I love their, mentor-mentee relationship, almost father-son relationship-ish, or older brother, younger brother relationship. I think that might be more accurate. And then we dive right back into another just exquisite chase scene, this time when they're going like up that building. I think that just looked incredible, man. That looked so goddamn good. I don't know if you guys saw this in IMAX, but I felt like I was in the scene. And then
I would have loved to have seen this in IMAX.
It was crazy. And then of course that scene ends with not leap of faith-esque, but it's just like one of those scenes where like the main character like finds himself, like he's made his decision, he knows what he wants to do, he's going to say his little cool one-liner, and it's just going to be like a very uplifting scene. So that entire sequence was just so well crafted because there was such a roller coaster of emotions, and I think they all worked very well together. And Miguel O'Hara was just a fucking menace. That man did not want to stop in that scene.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we can go from that to obviously where he gets out and then ends up in, if I'm not mistaken, he ends up in what he thinks is his Earth, but it's Earth 42. Is that right?
Yeah, it's Earth 42 because he forgets that. Yeah, that machine that like reads your genetics picked up the fact that spider that bit him was not from his universe. That
from
scene,
his universe, yeah.
Did you guys expect that? Because that scene actually like
when he gets there, or
when he gets there and he's talking to his parents, and then you keep seeing Gwen on the side of the building. I really thought that was the same universe.
I did. So obviously we see him going into where he lives, and then Gwen is kind of on the outside of the building, kind of looking in, waiting for him, and he's inside. I was the same as George. I thought it was the same universe. Miles sees Rio, his mom, and he basically goes on this big, tyrant tour and basically admits that he is Spider-Man. But little do we know, in this universe, that he, if I'm right in saying, doesn't exist, because the Prowler has become obviously a lot more powerful, and we see, what's his uncle's name again? Aaron. Aaron comes back. He's happy to see his uncle. We meet him. He's back. Whether that's obviously quite a big reveal there. I don't know if we knew that. His uncle takes him, upstairs, and they go into kind of this. Someone obviously knocks Miles out. Who is that someone? We learn to find out. Miles wakes up. He is kind of strapped to a punch bag. He's trapped with his uncle. He finds out his uncle is Prowler, and Prowler is obviously more powerful than ever. And then we have the big reveal. This is the one that everyone's speaking about, the cliffhanger, because someone comes down and takes the mask off. And who is that someone? It's another variant of Miles Morales. And the film ends with the two variants of Miles staring each other off, which is obviously going to lead to so much more, because he's in Earth 42, what he thought was his Earth, and then we find out obviously Gwen is in a completely different universe. She's in his Earth, his original Earth.
I was waiting, and I think this would have put this movie like over the edge for me in terms of like truly calling it one of the greatest of all time. if the movie ended, and I love the way the movie ended. I have no problem with the cliffhanger. I knew going into it that this was a part one. And if anything is labeled part one, part two, you should expect a cliffhanger. But there's a very awesome scene in Into the Spider-Verse where Miles has Peter B. Parker in the exact same situation where he's like tied to a punching bag and Peter B. Parker gets out of it as easily as possible. He's like, don't look at the eyes, look at the hands. If this movie ended with Miles just being as cocky and confident as possible and like electrocuting himself out and just being like, don't look at the eyes, look at the hands, I would have shit my pants on the spot. I think that would have been such an amazing callback. And
would that not have made it like almost counterproductive because the other variant of Miles is meant to be that kind of cocky, I guess, arrogant guy?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And it's like they stare at each other and it's the same Miles, if that makes sense. Just one of them is kind of on the other side of things.
Or like,
I know what you mean though.
Yeah, or if he like went to do something with his hands and the other Miles just like grabs his hands.
The other Miles just like
I'm looking at your hands, bro. Yeah,
more powerful to him, whatever, and did the callback to what Peter was saying earlier. I think that'd be even better. Tyler, what were your thoughts?
He's still on the punching bag when the movie ends. I'm still holding out hope that he's gonna say that line in and Beyond the Spider-Verse.
That'd be a cool callback.
No, like the ending for me was incredible, and like the more that I think about it, the more we talk about it. It's one of those things like when you see any movie, it just depends on what day you watch it, what mood you're in. Like I wasn't in a bad mood or anything, but like everything is so subjective on just like when you happen to stumble across a movie. So I think rewatching this, I don't want to see it in the theater just because like I feel like my next rewatch has to be without kids around, you know, being like loud and annoying. So like when I watch it alone, I think like I can easily see this going up. But I love that final scene so much. It was such Coraline vibes when like he goes in there and it's like, this isn't your real family. I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be Coraline flashbacks, and I just loved it because I was the same as you two. Did not expect that at all. Like didn't even expect, like I don't know. And I feel like it's one of those things like once you realize like the spider, the DNA got read and he went to the wrong universe. Like it's like, oh man, we should have connected those dots, but it took me by surprise. And the whole Aaron scene where like Aaron was like, you could tell he knew something was up with this Miles, but like you wanted to kind of believe that something wasn't up. And then they go like up to the roof and then the Prowler comes in and man, that was just like, I don't know. I couldn't think of a better way to end the movie than that. And it's crazy how people are mad about it.
Do you guys know that it was going to be Miles, I'm assuming?
I think before he pulled off his mask, I knew it would be Miles, but like there was a little bit of moment of disbelief.
When he got hit across the face, I was like, "Who the fuck did that?"
Yeah,
and then
I thought that was like an animation tactic they used, where it was like his Uncle Carter was hitting him over the face, but it animated it as the Prowler. So I like thought I was smarter than the movie, and then I realized no, I'm actually just an idiot.
Yeah, but when the camera panned over though to like the silhouette in the corner, that's where I was like, okay, that's gotta be Miles.
Well, I must be stupid because I said to Anna after, and she was like, yeah, I know, obviously it was Miles. And I was like, I didn't even realize for some reason. I thought it was someone completely different. But I didn't have an issue with the ending at all. I think I went into it knowing there'd be a cliffhanger, knowing it was a part one, knowing it was a setup to Beyond the Spider-Verse. Is that what we're talking? Yeah, Beyond the Spider-Verse.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, and I know we touched on it earlier, like maybe the casual moviegoer never knew that this was a part one and a part two, but it's also the second movie of a confirmed trilogy. Like, how many second movies in the trilogy don't end on some sort of cliffhanger?
Yeah. And I will say, like, the comparison a lot of people make is like Infinity War ended on a cliffhanger, which is true. But for me, I can watch it. I watch Infinity War and I don't like immediately feel like, oh, I need to watch Endgame now.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like when I rewatch these Across the Spider-Verse, I'll watch it. I'll be like, I immediately need to watch Beyond the Spider-Verse. So I feel like Infinity War stands alone a little better. But
I don't hate like that argument. I've seen a lot of people say like, if you look at Infinity War as a Thanos movie, it is like a complete film. And like, I don't hate that argument. But like, it's still a cliffhanger because it's not a fucking
You don't
Thanos
usually
movie.
watch a new sequel and then 99% of the time you will want to watch the next one. The whole point of it is a setup for the next one. Whilst I could watch it on its own and have a great time with it again across Spider-Verse, even if when the next one comes out, the whole point of it is to set up the outcome of what is going to be the eventual outcome of Beyond the Spider-Verse. And I think even though it stands alone as a film, you're always going to be excited for the new one because that's the whole point of it, realistically. It's a confirmed trilogy. But then again, it goes back to what we said earlier. I think a lot of people it's not in the title, so a lot of people just don't know that. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people aren't in the universe as much as we are, I guess, is the main thing.
I mean, I guess.
my movie showing was very funny because there were people that were like, "What the fuck? What's going on?" when the movie ended, and I'm like, "Yeah, guys, we just leave now." And they all, I was like, "The movie's over, people," but they were definitely caught off guard because I heard it from like 5 or 6 people that were sitting near me at the theater.
I love the mental image of Cam being like the usher of the Spider-Verse and being like, "Guys, it's over. Like, there's nothing else."
I also knew there was no post-credit scene. And so like I was trying to get out of there, and they're waiting, for a post-credit scene, which is understandable for a Marvel movie, but like I was just trying to get out of there.
It's not coming.
There wasn't one in the first one, was there?
There was.
There was.
There was.
I forget exactly, but I think it was. Oh, it was the tease for Miguel. It was a tease Miguel era.
But I think the ending for me was the opposite effect of the movie as a whole, where I feel like when I went into it, my expectations were even higher than people's expectations were sky high. But my 2 friends who like aren't really like online, but they love Marvel, I saw both their Letterboxd reviews, and they were like a 3.5 and a 4. And like the only thing they said in their reviews is like, what a bullshit ending. So like I think I went into it expecting like a terrible cliffhanger, like something where it's just like the middle of an action sequence and it just stops and says to be continued. So like for me, when I saw the ending, I was like, oh, that was great. Like I think my expectations were so low for the ending.
It's literally just
why are people mad?
I also I don't think it's as abrupt as people were saying. People are saying like this movie is missing an entire.
It's the same as like every.
Like I've seen people say that this movie is literally missing a third act, and I'm like, where were you for that entire chase sequence that took place like 5 minutes ago? Did you completely ignore that? And it's also like the final, like, I don't know if it was the final shot, but like the shot of all the spider people on the building, like teaming up. It's like, yeah, they're going to save Miles. They got to save the multiverse. They got to take down the Spot, and they got to take down Miguel. Like that's the perfect place to end.
It's literally how the majority of franchise sequels ends. It shows you, it foreshadows what you are going to expect in the third film.
I'm just
I just don't really understand the argument. I don't get it.
Empire, Two Towers, The Dark Knight,
like the Pirates of the Caribbean films, Dead Man's Chest is a really good one.
Yeah, like all of these movies are ending
with a reveal.
They're
something to look
not
forward to.
ending. Like none of them are ending. Like they're all just setting up, and it's like, why is the discourse on it so aggressive for this movie right now?
I get if you didn't like it, but what surprises me is how surprised you are by it.
Mm-hmm.
That's I think the main.
That's a good way to put it.
If you didn't like the ending, that's fine. You can like and not like what you want. But why are you surprised by a cliffhanger like that when every franchise has been doing that for God knows how many years? It's just it's weird to me.
I feel like being mad about the ending is not a valid criticism. Not loving the first hour like I did, not a valid criticism. It's just something that wasn't for me. The only like valid across the board not criticism, but like knock people have on it that I think like is the only one that I think is valid is what we've already mentioned. Like there's no big needle drop moment. There's no big like leap of faith moment to where you're like, because like I didn't see anything. There's so many awesome, amazing scenes in this movie, but there's no like YouTube clip scene where I'm like, I just want to watch that quick 3-minute snippet real quick. There's so many amazing scenes. It would
be that chase scene, I'll be honest.
Which that's valid, yeah. But I think like I don't think anything touched like leap of faith, which is what like it's not just people talking on this podcast here. I think I've seen on a couple other Letterboxd reviews being like, that's the only thing holding back from me from being like perfect is like there wasn't that like one iconic moment, which as we mentioned, like I can't remember who said it on this podcast earlier, is like most movies don't have that. So it's not like a knock on the movie. It's just like something that was in the first that we're like, man, if they just would have had that one thing, then it would have been like the greatest thing of all time. But like, just before I finish talking about it, I just want to say like, I know for me, my criticisms like of like not like loving the Gwen storyline and being sucked into it, I don't think that's valid. I think it's just like personally just my taste that I just didn't love.
Well, I
think
that is valid. I think that anything's valid for you.
Well, I'm saying, yeah, I guess, but I don't know. It's just like for me, I just didn't care for it in terms of as much as the Miles story, which why it took me a little longer to get into it. And I think when I edited my Letterboxd review, because like saying the first hour is truly wrong. It was like the first 30 minutes when it was all the Gwen, because like immediately once it got to the Miles story, I loved it. Right, I loved everything with the Miles and his family. So like I think the first hour was overshooting it because I think it was only probably like the first 30 minutes before we got to Miles' story, but it still was a good chunk of time before we got to Miles at all. I love the intro with like the drums and the like. I was like, oh shit, there's like cool. A Whiplash intro that's getting me like ready to frickin' run through a brick wall right now.
That was cool, yeah. Anything else anyone wants to go over before we transition? I think we've been on this quite a while now. Anything else? Or just go over ratings? George gave it
Soundtrack
a...
bangs.
5
Say
out of
again?
5.
The
5.
soundtrack bangs.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah, the soundtrack was
dude,
Soundtrack
very-
bangs.
How have we not mentioned this? Metro
The
Boomin
soundtrack was
absolutely
very,
smacked them.
very good.
And just added in
I-
Daniel Pemberton's score, also incredible.
The score
Dude,
was so good. It's
you
in
know
the
how-
sequences.
You get like Spotify Wrapped, at the end of the year. I think the amount of times I played "Am I Dreaming" yesterday, it's already my number 1 most played song of the year.
I'm assuming that you did that with Sunflower on the Into the Spider-Verse one as well.
No, I didn't.
Really? I did.
No.
Even I did that with
I think
Sunflower.
I did that more for "What's Up, Danger."
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, the soundtrack was amazing. George, 5 out of 5. Myself, 4.5 out of 5. Cam, like a 98, I think.
97.5 is the accurate score that he told me, but 98 is the
98,
letterbox score.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So 5 out of 5, and then Tyler an 8.4, which equals a high 4 out of 5. Let us obviously know your thoughts, but we'll move on to our other reviews of the day.